Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Beyond World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan John.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and on the show today, Venezuela remains on edge. This as interim President Delcy Rodriguez has insisted that no foreign power was governing her country. Now, this is a statement that comes after Donald Trump said that Washington would run it during a transition after ousting Nicolas Maduro. We're going to get you all the details on the show today. Stay tuned.
Also on World DNA, the White House has said that the military is always an option when it comes to acquiring Greenland. And this is acquiring Greenland from Denmark, as Trump is exploring how to take control of Greenland. Washington's stark warning came after European nations issued a joint statement saying matters pertaining to Denmark and Greenland can only be decided by them alone. We'll bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines.
I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia.
Donald Trump says he has a very good relationship with the Indian Prime Minister, but acknowledges Narendra Modi is unhappy with him over US tariffs on Russian oil purchases.
White House says Donald Trump is exploring ways to take control of Greenland, including a military option, heightening tensions with NATO allies, despite Greenland and Denmark calling for talks to resolve misunderstandings.
Donald Trump says Venezuela's interim government will turn over up to 50 million barrels of oil to the United States to be sold at market price, with the proceeds controlled by him and used to benefit both Venezuelans and Americans.
Macron, Starmer and Zelensky signed declaration for European troop deployments in Ukraine after a ceasefire, with a coordination cell in Paris. France may send several thousand troops, US support not confirmed.
Images show statues of Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and his predecessor Ruhollah Khamenei set on fire in Iran Sheher, Sistan and Balochistan province as anti-inflation protests continue across Iran.
Clashes between government troops and Kurdish-led forces in northern Syria's Aleppo kill at least 9 people, mostly civilians, in one of the worst flare-ups between the sides in months.
Israeli emergency services say 1 killed and 3 injured as bus hits pedestrians, urging a protest in Jerusalem against a law to conscript ultra-Orthodox Jews into the Israeli armed forces.
Taiwan's Air Force is searching for a pilot believed to have ejected from an F-16 fighter jet over the sea during a training mission off Hualien County, with Coast Guard and local vessels assisting in this rescue.
Freezing temperatures cause a second day of travel chaos across Europe, killing 6 people in weather-related accidents during the continent's harshest cold snap this winter.
US President Donald Trump is discussing options, including military action, to take control of Greenland.
Right, and this according to the White House, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority for Trump to deter US adversaries like Russia and China.
The Wall Street Journal reported U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told lawmakers that Trump's preferred option is to buy Greenland from Denmark, adding that the threats did not signal an imminent invasion.
Now, Denmark has warned that any move to take Greenland by force would mean that everything would stop, including NATO and 80 years of close transatlantic security links.
Greenland and Denmark said that earlier that they had asked to meet Rubio quickly as tensions rose over the issue. Greenland's foreign minister said that they had been pushing for a meeting throughout 2025, but so far it has not been possible.
Foreign Minister of Denmark, on the other hand, said that meeting Rubio should clear up what he described as misunderstandings. Meanwhile, allies have rallied around Denmark and Greenland.
The leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland and Spain joined Denmark in a joint statement. This was released just yesterday, saying that they would defend the universal principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity and the inviolability of borders.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer both sought to pay down the row as they attended Ukraine peace talks in Paris alongside US envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney also weighed in.
The future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for Denmark exclusively. It's their decision.
All right, for more on this, our colleague Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
The White House confirms that President Trump and his team are actively discussing a range of options to acquire Greenland, calling it a national security priority for the United States. In a statement first to Reuters, the White House said that the president believes the control of Greenland is vital in deterring U.S. adversaries in the Arctic, adding that, quote unquote, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. Officials say discussions include purchasing the territory or pursuing a compact of free association. A senior U.S. official told Reuters that the president wants the issue resolved during his current term, his second term, and that it's not going away despite objections from NATO allies and Denmark as well. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined live by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis from Sterling, Virginia. He's a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Lieutenant Colonel Davis, thanks so much for joining us here on World DNA. I was happy to know that you're joining us here on this topic because I'd really like to know from you, is this an option for the US to send US boots into Greenland? Is it an option for the US, or is it just another one, a page out of the US or Trump's playbook of, saying something which is outrageous and then getting everybody to pay attention to what he's saying and then resort to a different deal altogether? Over to you, sir.
Well, listen, here's the problem. You talk about is this just the Trump playbook? Unfortunately, the Trump playbook has expanded. And now that just in the first 12 months of his term, he has fired military operations into Iran. He has fired into Syria. He has fired into Nigeria. Now he has taken action in Venezuela and is threatening a whole host of other places as well. So you can't just dismiss this. Unfortunately, we have to take it seriously at face value. And tonight, the Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, didn't do anything to calm any fears when he said, no, this is something that we have to have. And he absolutely refused to rule out military force. So that by itself is an area of concern.
Lieutenant Colonel, what will it mean when they say military is an option? Will they send US boots into Greenland? How do you see this one if it is going to happen?
Listen, it doesn't make any sense. I'll just tell you that right off the top. That this idea that we must have Greenland for our national security is clearly not true. We have never had Greenland. Our security has never been in question. So we don't need it now. Nothing has changed. And we have more than enough power and our ability to project power around the world. So there is no truth to that. But something has gotten into President Trump's mentality to where he is just nearly obsessed with this. And if he decides he's going to take it based on what he's been doing here and other areas, and you can actually add in Yemen and the Red Sea into places he has used military power, you cannot rule out that he might do something like this. And it's as crazy as it is to say out loud. unfortunately, based on evidence, we have to take it seriously. I don't understand it.
The playbook has expanded?
Absolutely. And having said that, it having expanded, now I want to understand that Trump has framed Greenland as a national security priority here. But now the question is also how elastic is this rhetoric and where is US essentially going to draw the line?
Well, the thing about Trump, as you kind of alluded to, he is as elastic as it gets. There are no hard lines for Trump. He can say one thing and say he's about to do something and then just never do it, never give it a second thought, and no one thinks anything of it because he does that a lot. But as I point out, the playbook is expanding, and some of the times in the last 12 months, he has done it. And even though that I could sit there and lay out this logical path that our security is not a threat, we don't need it, you can't rule out the fact that he may take action on this because there are some issues like, for example, a lot of rare earth minerals, other kinds of natural resources, which President Trump has mentioned from time to time, and he may say, no, I just want it and I'm going to take it. And until he meets up with some firm resistance and not just some strong statements, but probably from Europe saying that, this is a red line and you can't do it. I think it's going to take something like that because you see, Trump doesn't take no very easily.
And Lieutenant Colonel Davis, let me take a little further from where Diksha left off and what you also mentioned. They'll need to have some kind of resistance here. If we just take that discussion a little forward, how do you feel this is going to impact NATO if this really happens?
This could absolutely shatter NATO. I'll just tell you, the stakes are much, much bigger than just Greenland and what may happen with that. Because in my estimation, just kind of looking at, all the factors that are involved here with Europe, with NATO, with the United States, if we literally took action here to take it, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that this could break NATO. Because now then you're going to have Europe, not Russia, not China, afraid of an aggressive American military. And they may not want to have their security tied up with the United States. It's not out of the question that this could literally break the transatlantic alliance over something as ridiculous as this. Unfortunately, that's a possibility.
Well, it is an unfortunate possibility. We'll leave it there, as you rightly mentioned. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis joining us here on World DNA. Always a pleasure speaking with you, sir. We will be tracking everything coming in from Greenland and would like to have you on the show again.
Thank you very much.
In other news, US President Donald Trump has said that Venezuela will be delivering up to 50 million barrels of oil to the United States.
And that the proceeds will be controlled by him personally as president. And this is just hours after Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, insisted that no foreign power was governing Venezuela.
We are here governing together with the people. The government of Venezuela is in charge in our country and no one else. There is no foreign agent governing Venezuela. It is Venezuela. It is its constitutional government.
Rodriguez, who was vice president under Maduro, has given mixed signals about how much he is prepared to cooperate with Trump, at times sounding conciliatory and at other times defiant.
In a first confirmation of losses, Venezuela's military on Tuesday published a list of 23 names of 23 troops, including 5 generals who were killed in the US strikes. Top ally, Cuba, separately issued a list of 32 people who died, and these were Cuban military personnel, not just regular civilians, many of whom were members of Maduro's personal security detail.
And paying tribute to whom she referred to as martyrs, Rodriguez said that we are people who don't surrender, who don't give up. Venezuela's interim president has announced a week of mourning for those who have been killed.
I have decided to declare a 7-day period of mourning in honor, and glory of the young people, women and men who died, who gave their lives defending Venezuela, defending President Nicolas Maduro. To them, our recognition.
A new footage of the January 3rd strike has emerged. It shows the scale of the US military intervention near Caracas.
And Trump, in a statement earlier, hailed the US armed forces, saying the operation showed America has the most powerful, most lethal, most sophisticated and most fearsome military on planet Earth.
Speaking to House Republicans at a retreat at the Trump Kennedy Center, Trump called Maduro a violent guy. Listen to this.
He's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy, and he's killed millions of people. He's tortured. They have a torture chamber in the middle of Caracas that they're closing up. But he's tortured people. And
Maduro, along with his wife Celia Flores, is in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. They pleaded not guilty to drug trafficking and other charges at an appearance in a New York court on Monday. Now, the next hearing is set for March 17th.
Global pressure is building on Washington. In the latest, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum called on US to ensure that the couple receives a fair trial. And supporters of Maduro and his wife, along with other government officials, they marched through Caracas on Tuesday to demand their release. The US Department of Justice has said that it is still reviewing more than 2 million documents potentially related to late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
And this comes as the DOJ failed to meet the December 19th deadline to release all files which are linked to Epstein's sex trafficking investigation.
Now, in a court filing submitted on the 5th of January, the US Department of Justice, DOJ officials said more than 2 million documents remained in various phases of review. The letter said about 12,285 documents comprising more than 125,000 pages had already been publicly released in response to the law, adding that less than 1% of the tranche currently is in review.
Signed by Attorney General Pam Bondi and others involved, the letter noted that it identified on December 24th more than 1 million files were not included in its initial review.
Now, it further said that substantial work remains to be done and that 400 DOJ attorneys and at least 100 FBI employees will spend the next few weeks reviewing these documents.
President Donald Trump is facing intense criticism from Democrats and even some Republicans for incomplete document dump, which is related to Jeffrey Epstein.
The Trump administration has defended its handling of the documents, noting the need to protect sensitive information about victims. The DOJ officials in Monday's letter said that they must manually review the documents for victim identifying information.
And Ukraine's allies, UK and France, have agreed to set up powerful security guarantees designed to secure a lasting peace if truce is achieved.
Now, the coalition of the willing representatives from 35 countries, they committed a US-led monitoring mission and a multinational European force to be deployed once a ceasefire with Russia is reached. After finalizing the commitments, French President Macron, British Prime Minister Starmer and Ukrainian President Zelensky, they signed a declaration of intent. President Macron confirmed that France is ready to send thousands of soldiers as a force of reassurance, while the UK and France plan to build military hubs across Ukraine.
This declaration by the coalition of the willing marks for the first time that operational convergence has been achieved among the 35 member states of the coalition, including Ukraine and the United States of America, in building robust security guarantees.
Now, confirming the Trump administration's backing of the security framework for Ukraine, U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff said that President was committed to Ukraine achieving peace and security protocols, which have agreed meant to deter any further attacks on Ukraine.
Those security protocols are meant to, A, deter any attacks, any further attacks in Ukraine, and B, if there are any attacks, they're meant to defend, and they will do both. They are as strong as anyone has ever seen. The President does not back down from his commitments. He is strong for the country of Ukraine and for a peace deal, and we will be there for the Ukrainians in helping them to get to that final peace, and we're confident we will get there.
After the meeting, German Chancellor Merz suggested that German forces could in fact participate by monitoring the truce from neighboring NATO territory.
It can also be right to do both, to station troops in Ukraine. These are primarily the Ukrainian troops that need to be strengthened and supported, but also to station additional troops in neighboring states to Ukraine, which can be deployed in the event of renewed Russian aggression.
For President Zelensky, the hardest work lies ahead. While the security case is built, the map of Ukraine remains the final, most explosive sticking point. While expressing satisfaction over the outcome, Zelensky said that the most significant issue that still needs to be resolved was the territorial question, referring to Russia's demands that Ukraine give up its eastern Donbas region. Currently, 20% is held by Russia.
With these documents, we are further strengthening legal work in countries with parliaments so that, when diplomacy succeeds in bringing the war to an end, we will be fully ready to deploy the forces of the coalition of the willing. The biggest remaining issue that still needs work is the territorial question. We discussed some ideas that could help. If the teams are unable to resolve certain issues, this can be escalated to the level of leaders.
Let's now shift focus to Iran. The protests here are continuing and they are violent. People are taking to the streets in almost every province.
And authorities have launched a crackdown. Dozens are dead, but protests continue to spread. In the capital, security forces fired tear gas to disperse demonstrators at Tehran's Grand Bazaar on Tuesday. Protesters threw gas canisters amid clashes with police.
According to videos shared online, a large crowd gathered on a covered street and can be heard chanting slogans. These chants included "Death to the Dictator."
Another video showed a statue of late Supreme Leader Ruhollah Khamenei and his successor Ali Khamenei set on fire by protesters in the Sistan and Balochistan province. Iranian authorities have not published an official death toll. However, the US-based human rights activist news agency reported that death toll is at 36. It said that 34 of those confirmed killed were protesters, while 2 were affiliated with security forces. Over 2,000 people are said to be detained. The group relies on an internal activist network and has been accurate in its reporting in the past.
Iranian semi-official media reported that a policeman was shot dead by what they called rioters in Malik Shahi in the western province of Ilam. Malik Shahi is a district of about 20,000 people, many of them from Iran's Kurdish minority. There have been widespread protests and a violent crackdown by security forces in recent days there. The protests were triggered by anger over the rising cost of living. The wave began on the 28th of December with a shutdown by merchants in Tehran, in the Tehran Bazaar, that is, a national economic hub in the capital. It has since spread to other areas and students have also joined in.
Now, the government of President Masoud Pezeshkian has announced modest monthly payments for people to alleviate the economic pain.
The Iranian currency continues to fall. According to the informal black market rate and several currency monitors, Iranian rial in value has really fallen against the dollar.
Iran's judiciary has warned that Tehran will offer no leniency to rioters, but it added that the public has a right to demonstrate.
Now, the head of the country's judiciary, AJ, said that Iran listens to the protesters and their criticism and distinguishes between them and rioters.
And with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break on World DNA.
Don't go anywhere. We will be back on the other side. More reports coming in. US President Trump has claimed that Indian Prime Minister is not happy with him because of the tariffs imposed by the US over India over purchases of Russian oil. We'll bring you what Trump said and the details on that.
Also coming up on the other side, a Taiwanese Air Force F-16 fighter jet has crashed off the island's eastern coast during a routine training mission, triggering an urgent search and rescue operation for the pilot. All this and more coming up on the other side of World DNA. Stay tuned. You're watching Beyond World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Deeksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss on this side of the show as well. Thanks so much for staying with us. Let's start with the headlines.
He's not that happy with me because, you know, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia. We get rich because of tariffs.
Donald Trump says he has a very good relationship with the Indian Prime Minister, but acknowledges Narendra Modi is unhappy with him over US tariffs on Russian oil purchases.
Venezuela's interim leader Delcy Rodriguez insists no foreign power is governing her country, even as US President Trump announces Caracas will be swiftly turning over millions of barrels of oil to the US now.
White House says Donald Trump is exploring ways to take control of Greenland, including a military operation, heightening tensions with NATO allies despite Greenland and Denmark calling for talks to resolve misunderstandings.
Macron, Starmer and Zelensky sign a declaration for European troop deployments in Ukraine after a ceasefire with a coordination cell in Paris. France may send several thousand troops. US support not confirmed.
Images show statues of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and his predecessor, Ruhollah Khamenei, set on fire in Iran Sheher Sistan and Balochistan province as anti-inflation protests continue across Iran.
Syrian authorities suspend flights to and from Aleppo airport in the country's north as deadly clashes between the government and Kurdish-led forces rocked the provincial capital. At least 9 people killed in clashes.
Israeli emergency services say 1 killed, 3 injured as bus hits pedestrians urging a protest in Jerusalem against a law to conscript ultra-Orthodox Jews into the Israeli armed forces.
Silver breaks past $80, climbing 11.7% in 2026 and adding $640 billion to its market value in just 3 trading days. Gold also extended gains as precious metal rally continues in 2026.
Former Manchester United and Bears Leverkusen manager Erik ten Hag is set to return to the Netherlands after being named technical director of FC 20. He will officially assume the role on February 1st. US President Donald Trump has claimed that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not happy with him because of the tariffs imposed over purchases of Russian oil.
Trump, however, reiterated his good relationship with the Indian Prime Minister. At the House Republican member retreat, Trump discussed his exchanges with Prime Minister Modi regarding defense sales and tariff measures.
He suggested that while relations remain cordial, the tariff issue has created some tension between them. Trump also mentioned that India has raised concerns over a 5-year delay in receiving Apache helicopters. He stated that his administration is now changing it to ensure the 68 ordered helicopters are delivered.
The Apache helicopter. I mean, I had India coming to me, sir, I've been waiting 5 years. We're changing it. We're changing it. India ordered 68 Apaches, and Prime Minister Modi came to see me. Sir, may I see you, please? Yes, I have a very good relationship with him. He's not that happy with me because, you know, they're paying a lot of tariffs now because they're not doing the oil, but they are. They've now reduced it very substantially, as you know, from Russia.
The US president has repeatedly warned that India could face additional penalties if it does not further scale back its Russian oil imports. Washington has imposed tariffs totaling 50% on Indian goods over New Delhi's significant purchases of Russian oil. Earlier, India rejected Trump's assertion that Prime Minister Modi had assured him that New Delhi would stop purchasing Russian oil, clarifying that no such conversation or assurance had taken place. A Taiwanese Air Force F-16 fighter jet crashed off the island's eastern coast. This happened during a routine training mission
and ended up triggering an urgent search and rescue operation for the pilot. The aircraft went down near Hualien County on Tuesday evening. The Air Force says that the pilot, identified as Captain Hissin, is believed to have ejected from the plane before the crash.
Taiwan's leader, Lai Ching-te, has directed all relevant agencies to spare no effort in locating the pilot and to launch a full investigation into the cause of the accident. The Coast Guard has also been mobilized with nearby fishing vessels called in to assist in the search as weather and sea conditions remain a critical factor.
The incident comes at a sensitive moment for Taiwan's Air Force. The island has ordered 66 US-made F-16V fighter jets, a heavily upgraded version of its aging fleet, even as delivery timelines face delays. Now, Taiwan only completed the upgrade of 141 older F-16s to the V standard late last year, as it races to modernize its defenses. This crash also underscores the pressure on Taiwan's military amid rising regional tensions.
China continues to claim the democratic island as its own territory and has stepped up fighter jet and warship incursions around Taiwan operations. Military analysts describe these operations as grey zone tactics designed to wear down Taiwan's armed forces without open conflict. For now, the focus remains on the search for the pilot and answers on what caused this jet to go down.
Well, tensions between China and Japan are flaring up. China has banned the exports of dual-use goods that can serve both civilian and military purposes to Japan.
Beijing says that the new measures take effect immediately and the move comes amid heightened tensions between the two countries over Taiwan. In a statement, China's Commerce Ministry said that exports of such items to Japanese military users, as well as any other end users that could help enhance Japan's military powers, are prohibited.
Now, it has warned that any individual or organization violating the rule will face legal consequences regardless of their nationality.
China says that the measures are aimed at safeguarding national security and national interests. While the statement did not mention specific goods, Beijing classifies various products across sensitive fields.
And this includes biotechnology, aerospace and telecommunications as dual-use goods that are subject to export controls.
Just last week, Japan's cabinet approved a record-high defense budget. It allocated $58 billion defense budget aimed at strengthening missiles, drones and maritime capabilities amid mounting tensions with China. According to a report by Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, Chinese makers represented 91% of the drones in the Japanese market as of April 2025.
The announcement from Beijing comes after major Japanese business groups said that they will be postponing their annual trip to China, originally scheduled for later this month. Now, since 1975, such visits have taken place every year, with rare exceptions during the COVID-19 pandemic and a 2012 dispute over Diaoyu Islands.
Beijing has stepped up its efforts to build a united front against Tokyo within the region. It has rolled out the red carpet for South Korean President Lee Jae-myung during a state visit this week. Lee was accompanied by several of his country's foremost business leaders, including the chairman of Samsung and the SK Group. Relations between China and Japan have been strained since Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested in early November that a potential, November 2025 that is, that a potential attack on Taiwan could warrant a military intervention by Tokyo. Now, these comments and these remarks were not taken well at all by China. Beijing claims that Taiwan is part of China's territory and has not ruled out seizing it by force.
In December, Japan said the Chinese military aircraft logged radar on its fighter jet, despite what Tokyo described as safe distance between them. China has stepped up military pressure on around Taiwan. Beijing has launched large-scale drills near the island last week.
We now shift focus to Bangladesh. It is heading for an election on the 12th of February. 300 of the 350 seats in the country's unicameral legislature will be going to polls.
And the remaining 50 seats will be filled after the election on the basis of proportional representation. So there are 300 seats up for grabs on February 12th. 51 political parties will be contesting, and this includes heavyweights like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami. Altogether, the 51 parties have put up 2,568 candidates. However, only 109 of them are women. So on February 12th, women will make up a mere 4.24% of the candidates. And even of the 109, only 72 of them have been fielded by political parties. 37 are independents. And in total, 30 of Bangladesh's 51 political parties have fielded no women candidates for the February 12th polls.
Now, let's look at some of the most prominent parties and the number of women candidates they have fielded. The BNP is contesting 285 seats out of the 300 seats in the legislature, but it has 328 candidates in total. It is fielding multiple candidates in some constituencies.
But despite this, the BNP put forward just 10 women candidates, and this was including late former Prime Minister Khalida Zia. Now, with her passing, the BNP will need to revise its nominations, so the number could drop further.
The Jamaat-e-Islami is contesting 276 seats, and not a single one of its candidates is a woman. It's almost the same situation with the Islami Andolan Bangladesh. The party is contesting 268 out of the 300 seats, and it doesn't have a single woman candidate. This is also the situation with several other Islamist parties in Bangladesh.
But the situation isn't much better elsewhere. The National Citizen Party, which was born out of the student movement that ousted Sheikh Hasina last year, is contesting 44 seats. It has fielded just 3 women candidates.
Now, there's a reason for the poor representation of women at the polls. As we mentioned earlier, only 300 of the 350 seats in Bangladesh's parliament were going to polls. The other 50 seats are granted later on the basis of proportional representation. These 50 seats are reserved for women. That's the rationale which is being given for the low participation of women candidates in all these parties. Parties nominate women of their choice to the seats they are allotted, and this means women are guaranteed at least 14.29% of Bangladesh's parliamentary seats. But almost none of the women are elected directly. They are chosen by their own parties in an opaque manner, keeping the women representation in politics largely symbolic.
After U.S. captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, Latin American countries seem to be under constant threat of Trump's intervention in their affairs.
Now, to discuss the issue at length, WION's Assistant Director of Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, spoke to Cuba's ambassador to India, Juan Carlos Marsan. Listen in.
Does the development which we have seen in Venezuela, the American intervention, worry you, worry your country, worry Cuba?
Any country should be worried about what is happening. The same day, he announced also their interest, to have a Greenland as a U.S. territory against even their allies, suppose their allies in Europe. They also make some treating against Iran, other countries. They put some military attacks on Nigeria. So every day we are following different actions of one country against any other in the world. I don't see China or any other South country attacking another one or making military invasions. It's the U.S. Because it's part of their philosophy that they are the owner of the world and they should but because of some reason, they have the role to guide the.
Offering a glimpse into the empire's art, design and cultural fusion, a rare showcase of the Mughal jewellery masterpieces is unfolded at the Hong Kong Palace Museum.
The exhibition, titled the Hong Kong Jockey Club Series, showcases the treasures of the Mughal court in collaboration with the Victoria and Albert Museum.
The showcase focuses on the three Mughal emperors, Akbar, Jahangir and Shah Jahan. The display showed their cultural influence and passion for exquisite design. What makes this jewellery showcase stand out is the Mughal Empire's royal legacy. Its innovative creations blend Persian, Islamic and Indian styles into works of unmatched beauty. Many of these precious items are still preserved and displayed in museums worldwide.
Now, among the star attractions were mesmerizing pieces, including the intricately enameled Meenakari necklaces, which gained prominence during the Safavid dynasty of the 16th century. The exhibition further highlighted the rise of iconic designs such as Kundan and Polki jewellery, which became deeply associated with Mughal artistry and till date ring a bell at weddings. While much of the Mughal Empire's precious gold and gems were lost or melted down in the empire's decline, a few jewels have withstood the test of time.
The most famous among them is the Kohinoor diamond, which was recut in 1852 to suit European tastes and now forms part of the British crown jewels.
Well, the American dream of home ownership is fading for millions of young people.
Rising home prices, high insurance costs and a lack of affordable options, they are all pushing millennials and Gen Z renters to give up entirely. In cities like San Francisco, Boston and Denver, housing is out of reach for the average earner. Experts warn this could lock an entire generation into long-term low-wealth trajectories. Here's what the data reveals. Take a look.
New research shows a growing share of young Americans are giving up on the dream of owning a home. A study from Northwestern University and University of Chicago says affordability has eroded so sharply that many renters no longer see ownership as achievable. The median home now costs nearly 6 times the median household income, up from 4.5 times a decade ago. As prices, insurance, and other costs rise, younger generations are not just delaying plans but abandoning them altogether. The study finds that belief in home ownership strongly shapes financial behavior. Renters who still hope to buy tend to save more, spend carefully, and work harder. But when ownership feels out of reach, behavior shifts. Millennials and Gen Z are increasingly doom spending on travel and lifestyle purchases, while saving for a down payment have collapsed. 2/3 of millennial renters now have zero savings. Research also links fading hope to lower work effort and to a rise in high-risk investing, including crypto, as frustrated renters search for faster wealth gains. Researchers warn that giving up on home ownership locks many families into long-term low-wealth trajectories. Renters who lose hope often remain hand-to-mouth for most of their lives, making it harder for future generations as well. And this comes amid broader signs of economic strain. A Harris poll shows even 6-figure earners are feeling squeezed. The study concludes that without targeted support for renters on the edge of ownership, wealth inequality may continue to deepen across generations. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.
It's official, Liam Rosenwa is the new Chelsea manager.
The FIFA Club World Cup champions have appointed the 41-year-old and 6.5-year deal. And Liam jumps ship to Chelsea from French League UN side RC Strasbourg, who are owned by Blueco, the same consortium that bought Chelsea in 2022. Liam had been the frontrunner to replace Enzo Maresca ever since the Italian left his role last week. Now, Liam's first game in charge to be FA Cup tie against Charlton.
The former Hull City manager, who has no Premier League coaching experience, becomes Chelsea's fourth permanent boss since Blue took control of the club. After a short spell in charge of Brighton's under-23s, Rosenauer began his senior coaching career in 2019 at Derby County, first under Philip Cocu and then as assistant to Wayne Rooney. Rosenauer briefly replaced Rooney on an interim basis in 2022 and this was before his full-time managerial role came at Hull City. He joined Strasbourg in June 2024 and guided them to UEFA Conference League qualification in his first full season, marking Strasbourg's first European qualification in 19 years. Before his appointment was made official, he announced his departure during his final press conference as Strasbourg manager, explaining why he could not turn down the opportunity to take charge at Stamford Bridge.
This opportunity for me is something that I cannot turn down at this moment in my life, for many reasons. One, it's an unbelievable opportunity, an unbelievable club who are Club World Cup champions with an incredible squad, an incredible fan base. Secondly, it means I can go home and see my kids. I'm away from my children. I've missed them, and I wanted to make the sacrifice of not seeing them worth it with the success that we have here.
The landscape of Indian cinema has shifted from local success to global domination.
And for the past few years, reaching the 1,000 crore club has become the gold standard for success. And here's a list of films which have crossed that threshold. The newest member of this club is Dhurandhar, the movie which has become a global sensation despite facing bans in several countries in West Asia. By early 2026, it amassed a staggering 1,241 crore rupees. That's nearly $138 million.
Since 2021, after the success of Pushpa, Allu Arjun became a household name in India. In 2023, he became the first Telugu star to receive the national award for his performance in the movie. The following year, Allu Arjun's Pushpa 2 The Rule, the sequel, didn't just meet expectations, it shattered them by becoming the fastest Indian film to reach the 1,000 crore mark. The final haul of the movie was 1,742 crore rupees, that is nearly $193 million.
In the year 2023, Indian superstar Shah Rukh Khan proved the power of a king in cinemas, as he's referred to. In the first half of 2023, he made his grand return with Pathaan. The movie had grossed 1,050 crores, and that is roughly $117 million. His next film, Jawan, which released the same year, but in the later half earned 1,150 crores, and that's roughly $128 million. His performance in Jawan also earned him his first national award.
Well, 2022 had been a landmark for the Kannada film industry. KGF Chapter 2, the sequel featuring Yash as Rocky Bhai, was a box office monster. The movie had raked in 1,212 crore rupees, which is approximately $135 million. Yash is set to return in Toxic and Ramayana Part 1 this year.
In 2022, SS Rajamouli's RRR became more than a movie. It became a cultural movement. Everybody was asking why Katappa killed Bahubali. And after winning an Oscar for Natu Natu and gaining a massive cult following in Japan and the US, it reached a global total of about $154 million.
Now, the film that truly changed the scale of South Indian cinema was Bahubali. For years, Bahubali 2, the conclusion, held the crown with its massive 1,810 crore rupees collection, which is roughly $201 million. It remains one of the most significant cinematic achievements in the country's history.
While others have crossed the mark, Amir Khan remains the architect of the modern standard for the club. His approach to Dangal was a masterclass in patience and dedication. Khan famously waited for 2 years, putting all other opportunities on hold to focus solely on one film. He underwent a grueling physical transformation to play both the younger and the older versions of his character Mahavir Singh Fogart. Rather than relying on established stars, he hired fresh faces. Dangal eventually grossed a historic 2,070 crore rupees. That is roughly $230 million. Even a decade later, it remains the highest grossing Indian film of all time. All right, viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. Thanks so much for tuning in. Short break now. Stay with us.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down